What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Eclectic Collector channel. I got a special video for you all today. I knew I said I was going to talk about this mangaka in a much bigger video, and I'm still going to do that, but I wanted to do this for now because it's going to take a while to get that other video going because I have to get a lot of reading done, and just getting through this first volume was already a ton of work. Not that I'm complaining about it because I actually really enjoyed it, but this is, for the most part, legitimately my first time ever reading Kazuo Umezu, or Kazuo Umez, however you want to say it, and I have become a believer. I'm a fan after reading this first volume of this series that he did in like the 60s, 70s, and I really want to talk about it with you all. This is in the form of a Let's Talk About, but this is going to be a bit bigger than my usual Let's Talk Abouts because I want to try to talk about each of the stories in this thing. I'm not going to spoil this. For the most part, when I do these sorts of videos, these are not like heavy spoilerish videos. But yeah, let's knock this out. These are my thoughts on what I thought was a really good story. That's a pretty big, chunky boy too. These are my thoughts on Kazuo Umez's The Cat-Eyed Boy, and this is released by Viz Media. Cat-Eyed Boy is written and drawn by the legendary mangaka Kazuo Umez. This omnibus is made up of several stories, and this is just the first volume, so there is another yet to come. Our lead, the cat-eyed boy, who is just that, a boy with cat-like eyes and almost elven-like ears, claws for fingernails and claws for toenails, finds himself in all manner of odd sorts of predicaments. At one point in time, he gets kidnapped by what looks like evil Colonel Sanders. He gets tied up and beat by a dude who looks like Golem, essentially. Each story ends with Cat-Eyed Boy, since that's the only name he's given, hitting the road again with a stick and his stuff wrapped in a sort of rag, like the Dust Bowl, 1920s, Grapes of Wrath, Hitchhikers. Despite this being something that was essentially written in the 60s and 70s, Cat-Eyed Boy is a pretty solid manga. It doesn't feel like a novelty at all, and despite its huge size, it's a pretty fast read. The first volume is composed of 5 separate stories. The first 2 stories, The Immortal Man and The Ugly Demon, first appeared in Shonen Gaho, and the last 3 of the collection, the Tsunami Summoners, the One-Legged Monster of Odai, and finally, the Band of 100 Monsters, Part 1, all appeared in Shonen King. It's not hard to see how Umezu-san inspired once up-and-coming mangaka, such as my personal favorite, Junji Ito. There are definitely some similarities in their storytelling, and sometimes the art direction, though not so much the style. What I mean is, Ito's work will sometimes have the old classic 1950s horror movie feel, with the cliché woman screaming with her hands on her face. Cat-Eyed Boy does it as well. Our introduction to this world and to the character of the Cat-Eyed Boy is a story called The Immortal Man. It is about a guy who just refuses to die, no matter what is done to him. There isn't a whole lot explained in this story, and it's probably the weakest of the 5. The plot doesn't even make the most sense. Even going back through it to write this review, it could have used some fine-tuning. This immortal man has his legs amputated by a train and grows new ones. One of his legs turns into a carnivorous monster and tries to eat the one-eyed boy, so that was a little funny and kind of odd. It does get much better though, going into the second story in the collection, The Ugly Demon. A man's wife dies in the birth-giving process, and the child she has is so hideous, it scares all the townsfolk. As the child grows, having felt nothing but hate his whole life, he becomes a true monster, stealing a body to make his own through a Dr. Frankenstein sort of experiment performed by a guy who looks like the Japanese Colonel Sanders. The Ugly Demon captures and beats the literal hell out of Cat-Eyed Boy with a club. Even in a new body, the ugly demon is just that, as hideous as he was in his own flesh. The point where this collection really took off for me was the Tsunami Summoners. There is a part in the story that reminds me of Berserk, of the Eclipse more specifically. Yokai gather around to witness the birth of a yokai child, and it made me think of that story in terms of how the monsters all looked, grotesque and deeply detailed. I can see Miura Sensei having taken inspiration from this, but not saying it is definitely where the monster ideas came from. For all I know, the late Miura Sensei never even read Umez in his life. The art style here really took a leap, because in the first two stories, the monsters were hideous, but this is where Umez became much more imaginative with the Cat-Eyed Boy series. It also serves as an origin story for our lead, but I won't go too far into that. The Tsunami Summoners has so far been the most sprawling story, stretching across several years instead of a few days or months. I think so far, this is my favorite of the series. For the most part, I went into Cat-Eyed Boy blind, and I'm kind of glad that I did. I haven't up to this point read anything else. Like, I have behind me, as you can see, I've got the Drifting Classroom series, volumes 1 through 3 of those big omnibus volumes, and I'm going to take those on pretty soon. But for whatever reason, like, Cat-Eyed Boy just piqued my interest, and like, I saw this cover, dude, and I was like, yo, I really want to check this out. This looks like a pretty wild ride. And sure enough, this thing has been just an absolute blast to read, and the next volume I think comes out like next year or something, or maybe this month. I can't even remember, to be honest with you, but I'll put the date right here of when this next volume is going to come out for Cat-Eyed Boy, and it might only be these 2 volumes. I'm not sure how much he wrote for this series, but I've enjoyed it so much, dude, that I definitely do want to keep involvement with the story, and to see where Cat-Eyed Boy's adventures are going to go next in volume 2. And yeah, let's see what else the story has in store, and I'll share more of my thoughts with you through some more panels that I've got coming up, so please stick around. There is still more to talk about. Then the Tsunami Summoners leads into the one-legged monster of Odai. Cat-Eyed Boy comes into a nail hammered into a tree in the forest. As he approaches it, the nail flies at him and becomes embedded in his skin and is soon absorbed. He ends up being infected with a yokai, the one-legged monster of Odai. One thing about this story, Cat-Eyed Boy just cannot catch a break. Dude gets put through the absolute worst. From being beaten with clubs in the Ugly Demon to being pelted with rocks in the Tsunami Summoners, and now having a yokai inside him, still, he perseveres. The yokai in this one feels like a forest spirit that only hurts those that bring harm to its territory. It reminds me of one of the stories in Witches where a forest witch takes out a group of invading soldiers. There is this kid who is essentially a brat and pins live insects to a board and has several of them in his room. As soon as he grows disinterested with the bugs he's already captured, he dumps all the insects out the window and starts over again. This angers the forest spirit, which, while controlling the Cat-Eyed Boy, demands the brat stop killing insects, or the consequences he faces will be much more severe. One thing you learn about the Cat-Eyed Boy through the course of these stories is that he is pretty despondent when it comes to the ill omens that befall the people whose homes he barges into. He really only takes issue with people pretending to be monsters, as evidenced in the last story of this first volume, the Band of 100 Monsters. This one is interesting as well, with a literal band of 100 monsters, people ostracized by society for being different. What it makes me think of is the 1932 film Freaks, which employed people with real deformities. As unrelated as it is to this manga, there is also a book that I highly recommend by the late Catherine Dunn called Geek Love, about a family of sideshow performers. I couldn't help but think of it as I read this story. It is a wonderful book, and an expertly crafted one. In this final story of the first volume of The Cat-Eyed Boy, he meets this band of 100 monsters who also remind me of the Phantom Troop from Hunter x Hunter for whatever reason. Probably just because there's a lot of them and they each have a special power. The band tries to convince Cat-Eyed Boy to join their ranks, something he is a little iffy about. Overall, their ambition is to turn people with ugly hearts into monsters as ugly outside as they are inside. Their first victim is a writer who plagiarizes the majority of his body of work. The band is essentially giving people their just desserts, getting back at those that shunned people who looked like freaks. Some of their victims do deserve to be put in their place, but is it really the right of the band of 100 monsters to do this? Or are they overstepping themselves in this bizarre sort of vigilante behavior? The only real gripe I have with this story is the overuse of the same character faces. Almost every single character in all the different stories looks exactly alike. You'll see what I mean when you read it for yourself. Or if you already have read it, I'm sure you noticed it as well. The only other complaint I have is the dated artwork. It's not the story's fault, and it's not Umez's fault either, though it did keep me from fully connecting with it at times. Those are my only complaints, and they're pretty superficial because the rest of the story is so strong. It's a solid series, and one that is definitely worth reading. If you've read Cat-Eyed Boy, I'd love to know what you think of it. Or if you are a fan of Umezu-san, I'd love to know what you think of just his work in general. There's that I know of, there's another one that's coming out called My Name is Shingo, as far as I know. There's other stuff that he's done, but I'm not sure how much of it's actually in English. Having read this now, and this being my introduction to, Umez-san, I'm really excited to, delve into Drifting Classroom now because I've heard really good things about Drifting Classroom. So that's a series that is definitely on my list, and it's something that I'm going to start next year. And hopefully I'll be able to go down the line and read Drifting Classroom, and I also have the complete set of Orochi, so I'll definitely be jumping on that as well. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, to be honest with you, because I want to do a video, about each of his things. I want to do a separate video about each of his series, but then you know what, I may actually end up doing a separate video, kind of like my my video that I did about Tatsuki Fujimoto. I did a creator video about Tatsuki Fujimoto. I might do that with Kazuo Umez, and do a video for each of his series, and then do a creator video for him about the stuff that he has, in English, from Cat-Eyed Boy to Orochi to Drifting Classroom, and then when My Name is Shingo comes out, I'll do that one as well. But I definitely recommend this. I wish I would have done this a lot sooner. I wish that I wasn't so swamped all the time and I had, time to get my projects out in a much more orderly fashion. I could have probably knocked this out a lot sooner. And I think this came out in October, right? Or did this come up after October? I can't even remember. But if this did come out pre-October or in October or something, I could have maybe, knocked it out and got my video out a lot sooner. But I can't remember, when this actually came out, and my getting around to it was a little screwed up. I couldn't get around to it, at the time that I would have liked to. I mean, even my autumn reading video came out towards the end of actual autumn. It's pretty tough, dude. When you got a lot of stuff going on, you kind of try to make use, of your time and try to get as much stuff done as you can. But sometimes, things don't always pan out the way that you would like them to. If you've read Cat-Eyed Boy, or if Cat-Eyed Boy is on your list, I'd love to know what you are I'd love to know if you're looking forward to this thing, or if you've read it, your thoughts about it, or just Umez in general. If you've read any of his work, if you've read anything that isn't yet translated into English, or if there's anything that's going to be translated into English in the future by him that you're interested in, or something that hasn't yet been scheduled to be translated that you want to see translated. Whatever you got, and I'm really looking forward to being able to continue this series. I finished this whole volume. It took me a while because like I'm juggling a bunch of different stuff, but I finished it, and yeah, dude, it was solid, and I can't wait to continue this dude's story. I've become attached to the character, and I wanna, even though he gets the hell beat out of him half the time, and it's sad to like watch him get hurt, because like I'm a cat person, even though he's like technically like a cat boy. So yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please sub to the channel, leave me a like, leave me a comment, tell me what's going on with you. I hope that you are doing well. I hope everything in your life is going well, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Please take care of yourselves.
Yo, it's himself, the Shadowrunners clique, aka Sleep Allah. Take you on a mental and live for one day, y'all. Sheets, y'all. Guns, y'all. Yo, who got the guns? You got the coke. Hustling them through like big punch cholesterol before he croak. Rest in peace, but I bless in peace and live to one day lay in shoots. Rap over beats and tell wild stories and mythology mystery. Choke on your own misery. Fuck them, we're the wild bunch. Yo, I asked him if this bike could punch. This shit made me lose my lunch. Bro grabbed the rocket, I said chill before he cocked it.